I call this meeting the Siloam Springs Board of Directors for May 19, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Sappington.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please stand as Director Burns leads us in opening prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, we thank you for another opportunity to serve the community of Siloam Springs, and we are humbled. And I pray that with Memorial Day on the horizon, that we remember the sacrifices that were made that provide us all our freedoms. And it's your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening. We have a nice crowd this evening, and everybody is observing the social distancing. We appreciate that, and the masks, and welcome. And we will try to move this along as quickly as possible because I know these things are hot and fog your glasses if you're not careful. Before we move on into our regular business, I want to make sure that everyone here has their electronic devices silenced in case you have a phone that is set to ring or go off or anything like that. We don't want to interrupt someone while they might be speaking. I appreciate that. Thank you. Board, you've each received a copy of the regular minutes of May 5, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there anyone who feels that the minutes need to be amended or adjusted as you have received them? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Next is the period in time where we have public input. And this is when the public may address any city business, may address this board on any city business that is not on tonight's agenda. If you want to speak to one agenda item, you need to wait until we get to that item, please. But if you have another item of city business that you'd like to address the board, please come forward, state your name and address, please. Being none, we will move on to our regularly scheduled items. First one is Ordinance 20-09, first reading, establishing an entertainment district. Is that Don? Or Philip, is that you or Don?
Should be Don Clark. He's probably coming in here now since they're in another room.
Okay.
This on the internet, and there's a slight delay, so.
Oh, I got you. There he is. He lost so much weight, he's lost a step too. So his speed isn't quite as great as it was at one time.
Sorry, we realized there was a delay. I started heading this way. All right. Mayor, Board, Don Clark, Community Development Director. What you have before you tonight for your consideration is an ordinance establishing an entertainment district and declaring an emergency. And the directors, so I'm going to give a little bit of history of how we got to where we are. So in the director's comment period of the Board of Directors meeting on April 21, 2020, Director Burns asked staff to investigate a temporary entertainment district as restaurants had been affected by the pandemic. Also mentioned was the allowance of additional outside seating for downtown restaurants. The suggestions were met with no objection from the other Board of Directors. So staff put together a short presentation for the May 5th Board of Director meeting. What we were seeking in the May 5th Board of Director meeting was feedback from the board. Based upon the feedback that we got from the board and the discussion that took place on that meeting, there was no clear consensus by the end of that meeting in staff's opinion. And so from that, staff drafted the ordinance that you have seen, Ordinance 20-09. As explained in the presentation on May 5th, allowing the possession and consumption of alcohol at the seating areas outside the physical permitted area of a business, brick and mortar business, will require the establishment of an entertainment district. And so I also like to note that also in that presentation, it was explained that if an entertainment district is set up, it only allows the possession and consumption of the alcoholic beverage. It does not allow a business to go out and serve or exchange monies for the alcoholic beverage at the public sidewalk or in the district itself. In April of 2019, the Arkansas State Legislature passed Act 812, permitting cities to establish entertainment districts. Those districts could be either temporary or permanent. That act was attached to the staff report. To staff's knowledge, the intent of the request from Director Burns was to assist restaurants located in the downtown area with economic recovery from the pandemic. On April 28, 2020, the state of Arkansas and the Arkansas Department of Health set directives for the Phase 1 reopening of restaurants. The directive included limiting seating to 33% of capacity for both indoor and outdoor areas. And the requirement also included to maintain the proper social distance. So those seating areas had to be at least a minimum of 10 foot apart. And speaking with the Arkansas Department of Health, staff speaking with them, they agree that the tables that are placed on the sidewalk and they're currently where there's no defined area, no defined outside area that's permitted, an outdoor patio area, that the 33% reduction would not apply so long as the tables were spaced at the minimum guideline of 10 feet. Staff did speak to a restaurant located in the proposed district that does not currently have an outdoor seating area, and it was advised that in order to justify the purchase of outdoor furniture, that it was their feeling that the time frame for the district would need to be allowed at a minimum of 6 months, and that would extend us into November. Based upon staff's opinion of the state's allowance for the entertainment district and what the intent was to permit the public to move freely within a specific area while consuming alcoholic beverages rather than the issue consuming alcoholic beverages with meals served by restaurants in the public realm. Therefore, staff is not recommending approval of Ordinance 20-09. However, should the board choose to move forward with this ordinance, we suggest doing so with the regulations outlined in our ordinance, and they are as follows. Alcoholic beverages lawfully sold by an establishment within a designated activated entertainment district properly licensed for the sale of alcoholic beverages would be permitted for consumption on public rights of ways within the entertainment district between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Thursday through Saturday. All alcoholic beverages sold as allowable for consumption on public rights of way or within the entertainment district would be in a plastic cup no larger than 16 fluid ounces in size, which includes the name and or logo of the event or sponsoring establishment, and has been commercially or professionally printed on said cup. No alcoholic beverages would be permitted for sale, and no alcoholic beverages would be permitted to be consumed in bottles, glass, or cans in the public rights of way. No person would be permitted to possess more than one alcoholic beverage at any time. The boundaries of the entertainment district would be delineated by signage, striping, and or barricades that indicate when one is entering or exiting the entertainment district. Business establishments and or event sponsors within the entertainment district will be responsible for litter management in the district, including but not limited to providing adequate trash receptacles in coordination with the sanitation department. Consumption of an alcoholic beverage or possession of any open alcoholic beverage container in a vehicle in the right of way or in the public or any public parking area within the entertainment district would be prohibited. The rules and provisions regarding the entertainment districts will not supersede, eliminate, or otherwise impede the enforcement of laws regarding public intoxication, sale of alcohol to minors, and any other state or local regulation regarding the sale or consumption of alcohol or alcoholic beverages and related offenses unless otherwise stated in the entertainment district ordinance. Public consumption of alcohol purchased outside of the district and or not in the original container as provided by the district vendor will also be prohibited. The entertainment district, if created, will cease, and all provisions will no longer will be in effect as of 9 p.m. Saturday, September 26, 2020, unless extended, suspended, or modified by resolution of the board. So, staff to properly sign and mark the boundary, staff is estimating about $3,000 to be able to do this, and we are standing ready for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Are there any comment? Okay,
Very, very quickly, I just want to make one thing clear to everybody. This is a temporary ordinance. Therefore, it only requires one reading. It's not an ordinance that's permanent in nature, which usually requires 3 readings. So you have only one reading on this ordinance. There is also an emergency clause which would require a separate motion and a supermajority in order to pass the emergency clause. But I want to make sure everybody understands, being that it's a temporary ordinance, it only requires a single reading.
thank you, Philip. All right, if there are any comments from the audience, I ask that you come up and state your name and your address, and try to make them as brief as possible, because it is potentially we could have a lot of folks wanting to address this, and there will be a lot of repetition in what people have to say. So we want to be mindful of your time and of the board's time. And I would ask that if you come forward, that if someone is moved forward and you see them move, wait until they're through and back in their seat before you get up, so we only don't have people lined up. It would just be better. We're going to take all the time it needs, folks, okay? So if anybody wants to address this issue before the board, please come forward and state your name and address and make your comments, please. Don, would you double check to make sure there's no one out in the lobby that would like to come in, please, too? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sherry Norwood. I live at 21023 River Ridge Drive, Siloam Springs. I already emailed the directors some of my thoughts regarding this ordinance, so I won't repeat them now. I appreciate the director's willingness to help businesses in our town. I think nearly everyone has felt some negative impact from the pandemic. Unfortunately, this proposal goes beyond letting customers order a beer with their pizza or wine with their steak at an outside table. It allows someone to purchase alcoholic drinks to go and consume them on the sidewalks anywhere within the designated district. Therefore, I ask you to oppose this ordinance. A public drinking district would change the character of our downtown. It is something that should be considered with care, not undertaken as an emergency measure. I have watched the city of Siloam Springs seek public input for revitalizing downtown over months and years, resulting in well-thought-out plans for our new library, splash pad, amphitheater, walking and bike paths, and downtown sidewalks and parking. The board has done a great job evaluating community needs for economic growth and quality of life. This careful consideration has not been taken with this proposal. What economic studies or research have you done to show that establishing an entertainment district will help Siloam Springs, even temporarily? Do we understand the true costs? Have you considered that some of the people who patronize our downtown restaurants and businesses might not feel welcome bringing their families downtown if people are drinking in the streets? What about the noise impact for residents who live in the apartments above those sidewalks? Our teens love hanging out downtown. How do you plan to prevent people over age 21 from sharing their alcohol with underage people in the street? How will you keep people from carrying alcohol beyond the boundaries of the entertainment district? Who will provide and pay for security monitoring in the district? These and a host of other questions must be addressed. Arkansas Act 812 gives great flexibility to municipalities in creating and regulating their entertainment districts. An entertainment district in Siloam Springs should be carefully crafted to meet the needs of our community and should address all potential issues and problems. The current proposal does not do this. A cost-benefit analysis should be conducted to see if an entertainment district even makes sense for our community. This research should be done over months, not days. Nearby communities, such as the Square in Bentonville and Dixon Street in Fayetteville, are thriving without entertainment districts which allow public drinking. You as a board, in conjunction with Main Street and others in Siloam Springs, have invested time and money to improve downtown. It is a special place. I encourage you to continue those efforts and oppose Ordinance 29. Downtown Siloam Springs can grow and flourish without public drinking. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have two folks that want to come in that are in the lobby right now. Don, if you ask one of them to step in, please. There's a little bit of delay. I heard, I could hear that. I got to hear myself. Oh, how about that? Okay.
Funny, there is a little delay. Hi, I'm Patty Arnett. I live at 616 South Maple. I dressed up for you guys. Not really. I just came from my shop. So anyway, I didn't prepare anything, so I'm just going to throw out what's in my head. Sorry. I was listening to the lady that spoke before me, and in the time it would take to do a cost analysis, I can tell you that the businesses downtown might shut their doors. We are struggling, and it's been so hard. And just any sign of something that might help our revenue, Tintos and Tapas, Fratelli's, 28, and those are the businesses that have alcohol permits that are included in the districting. For those businesses, this might make a real difference. The great thing about this is it's temporary. The great thing is it's a trial. So if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, then when is it, the 26th of September? It's over? Or it could be even before that. And I know for some of you that grew up in the 70s, maybe you're thinking about Animal House, but that is simply not our little town. We are not even Fayetteville. We have kids that go to a college that signed a covenant that are very serious about that. They're not going to sit out on the sidewalk and get drunk. I will tell you, at least one time a day, we lose a sale because somebody comes in and they ask if they can have a beer, or a glass of wine with their meal on the sidewalk. And the average age is, I would say, 70, maybe 65. And we say no, and so they get a glass of water or they get tea. And we're losing revenue and you're losing revenue on that. So I ask you, please, for the sake of the businesses downtown, to pass this as a temporary measure so we can all see what it would be like. Thanks.
Thank you, Patty.
Afternoon. Good evening. Good evening. Can you
You
all
pull the
see?
mic down a little bit so we can hear you. Reach up and grab the mic and pull a little closer to. There you go.
Okay.
That's perfect.
And I'm
right
so
there.
short, you probably can't see
I
me either.
understand. I understand. But we want to hear you.
Oh,
Look, even
great.
if we can't see you, we
Well,
want to hear
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you, everyone, for allowing this to even happen and be a consideration. I have lived in Siloam.
Excuse me, but I need your name and your
Oh,
address
yes,
first.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
My name is Jasmine Allgood. My husband is Sean Allgood, and we own Tintos and Tapas. Ooh, it's hard to breathe under this. And we also live in downtown. We live over at the Creekside Flats, and we have been living there for 2 years. We lived there before the Park House Bar and Grill opened, and we've been living there after. We enjoy downtown. Like I said, we've been here for 2 years. And Tintos and Tapas has been such an amazing experience for us, and we've been so welcomed here in Siloam Springs. We came from the East Coast of Virginia. And I will also piggyback what Patty Arnett said, that without this, I think we've been closed for 2 weeks because we're losing a lot of revenue. Part of our business is that we are a Spanish restaurant. And with that, we're an authentic Colombian cafe. So we offer coffee and we offer tapas. And those are Euro-Spanish foods. And with that, we have wine and beer. And in February, we just finished our 1 year of being open. We had our anniversary, and we were able to add
the beer and wine to our meals. We were so thrilled and excited, and then COVID happened. When we added beer and wine to our tapas, which they work well together, by the way, we had about a 30% increase, if not more, in sales and revenue. And as soon as COVID happened, we lost that. And so if people really want that authentic Spanish foods, music, environment, they want that beer and wine to go with it. It just matches. And when we had our garage door open, we were all very responsible. We watched our customers. We made sure that they were drinking responsibly. We made sure that the food that we served matched our beer and wine. And that's why we took the ABC class, because we wanted to be responsible. And so I think that's one of the beauties of Siloam Springs. I grew up in San Francisco, big city. I also lived in New York City. And Siloam, the reason why we're here, I don't want to go back to California. I don't want to go to New York City. I want to stay here in Siloam because it's a city that takes care of each other. I have the option of moving to Gentry or Gravette or somewhere else, but I love Siloam right now. I just couldn't see myself anywhere else. And so my business will communicate with Fratelli's. My business will communicate with Pure Joy. My business will communicate with Cafe on Broadway. We all communicate. We all watch after each other. We all take care of each other. And so I think that by us being able to do that, we'll take care of our customers. And so I just wanted to express that all of us, Park House, 28 Springs, Pure Joy, by allowing this to happen, it'll allow to bring more people down here. And like I said, we all take care of each other. We all watch out after each other. I don't think this is a place that, it's not San Francisco. It's not New York City.
We're over 4 minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I didn't give them a time limit. I never told them they had a time limit tonight. So, sorry, Renee.
So again, we all take care of each other, and I think that that's an important thing. And this is a trial, and we'll see how it goes. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine. All right, that takes care of our lobbyists. I wouldn't call them lobbyists. I mean, our lobby residents, shall we call them, okay?
Hello, my name is Brian McKenzie. I live at 104 South Maxwell, which is downtown in the proposed district, and I am also the general manager of 28 Springs. I would like to reiterate what Patty and the owner of Tino's at Tapas had said. The restaurants downtown are struggling. I know that this past weekend was supposed to be JBU graduation, and so on Saturday alone we would have expected $15,000 in revenue, and we lost more than 90% of that. I'm sure the other restaurants downtown experienced a similar decline in their sales. And also, since the closure of the dining rooms, we've missed out on alcohol sales. And for people who aren't in the restaurant business, alcohol makes up a primary part of a restaurant's profit center. It is, as you might know from going to restaurants, much more expensive to buy a bottle of wine there than at home. And that's basically the rent you're paying to have a nice restaurant in your town. And so for us to not be able to sell alcohol means that we miss out on quite a bit of earnings for ourselves, for our staff, and for the city in tax revenue. And without that, a lot of restaurants downtown are going to go under. Now, we don't have outside seating at 28 Springs. Our sidewalk is too narrow. And so for something that is temporary until September for us, it might not be worth it to make the investment for outside seating. But I know for a number of restaurants who sort of don't have that physical limitation, like the cafe, like Tito's, like Fratelli's, they will be able to enjoy this revenue of being able to safely serve people outside and downtown. For myself, I know that we do a lot of training with our staff on how to properly serve alcoholic beverages to our guests, how to not overserve our guests. We're licensed by the ABC, and that means we have to pass regular inspection, and that we have to do training to make sure to serve people safely. And we take that as a sort of a key way to be able to do our business. And also, we all live downtown. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And so we think of it as a moral thing to be able to not overserve patrons. And I know that my fellow, restaurant managers and owners feel the same way about this. So I would say, if anything, this temporary entertainment district should be a permanent entertainment district for downtown. I know that's not possible with needing to have it as an emergency ordinance, but I would just say long term, I think this would be a benefit to the downtown rather than a detriment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Hi, my name is Deborah Sisk. I am a retired teacher, and I now work for the city at the part-time at the library. And I
I need your addresses.
Oh, I'm so sorry. 200 Glenwood Place here in Siloam Springs.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was frankly appalled when I heard about this. First off, I'd like to say I'm very sorry for all the small businesses in Siloam. I have worried about them. I have prayed for them because during this time, I know they have all lost economy. But my biggest problem with this is, how is this going to help all the small businesses in Siloam? You are pinpointing a few small businesses, not all the small businesses in Siloam. Now, when you are selling alcohol downtown, outside, these are the problems that I'm seeing. Possible, and because I was an elementary teacher, I'm worried about the safety, especially of children. You've got parks down here. So I'm looking at the possibility of public drunkenness, the possibility of harm of minors, the possibility of rowdy and unruly behavior. The downtown area is a small area. I love to walk downtown. And I know other people love to walk downtown and ride their bikes. So if you're starting to put tables out there, and so now you're crowding them. So you're helping just a few businesses that's going to endanger a lot of people. So, and in doing that, you're going to need more police supervision that's going to take police away from other areas. So I'm thinking you may be looking at a small picture instead of the big picture. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Kevin Williams, 2604 Courtney Circle. May not be a real popular opinion here, but all those possibilities she mentioned already exist. We're not making downtown lawless. We're not saying open this up to drunks just to roam the street. I know I worked at the police department for several years, and there were many police calls to the parks, to downtown. Public drunkenness is illegal regardless if it's during this or now. It's still illegal. So I'm not necessarily looking at this just to help small businesses downtown. I think this could, in a long run, as an entertainment district, maybe bring businesses to downtown to know that they have an option of expanding on something that we can't do right now. So I don't think that we're looking at just making it a lawless Bill Street atmosphere. It's just somebody could walk around with a cup that's not a wine glass, it's not a can of beer, it's a cup. You see somebody walking around right now with a Sonic cup, you don't know what's in it. We don't know what Lisa's drinking in that Brahms cup. She may have brought her vodka with her. It's just one of those things you don't know. So just because we're making it legal for a temporary time doesn't mean that it's permanent. Maybe it doesn't work, but it doesn't hurt to see.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else?
Larry Kennemore, 207 Western Hills Drive, Siloam Springs. I really didn't show up tonight to speak about this because I didn't realize it was going to be on the agenda. I came for something else, but I did send all of you an email. I hope you all received it and read it. I want to make sure it's on the record. And I want to point out something that I put in that letter to all of you, and that is you received this report tonight from staff, and they pointed out there was $3,000 expense. However, I was here when the police chief spoke, and he said there would be additional expense from the police department, and I don't see that in that report. And I think it's going to be considerably more than $3,000. And adding that amount to it, we could use those dollars someplace else in this city that needs to be fixed, that's broken right now. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else?
Hello. My name is Alma Sanchez. I live at 408 Greenwood Place. I own the Park House Kitchen and Bar downtown. And for the last year and 3 months, we've essentially been running our own entertainment district downtown in that little area. We have not had any issues. Revenue is good with the alcohol sales, and they're allowed to drink in public. Essentially, you can walk past the sidewalk, you see people drinking, and they leave and then go hang out, walk the parks, go to the different stores. They're not sloppy drunk after they're done drinking in public in my place. They've been responsible. My only concerns are that insurance liability and stuff with my logo on a cup. A person buys my cup and they consume the one drink, and then they have alcohol somewhere else that they're putting in that cup. I don't want to be liable for that, so I need to just some questions about liability. And it said they must have our logos on the cup if we want to sell that. And if I don't offer that service, is it going to affect my revenue? Because they don't have that option to take mine and leave. And then just extra liability on all of the downtown businesses. Does it raise our insurance rate to be labeled an entertainment district? Or does it lower it possibly? Because I pay a lot of insurance for my liquor liability license. But essentially, we've been staying open. We're 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Saturday night with no issues, no noise complaints. Everybody comes and has a good time and they leave. We haven't had fights. The police have never been called there for our purposes, calling them to break up fights or anything. So I don't really have anything bad about the entertainment district. I don't think we need it right now. I don't think it's anything that we should rush into. With the pilot program, I would like to see us put some more thought into it, because essentially I want Siloam to be an entertainment district, but I don't want us to blow it on this pilot program and then it never sees the light of day again, or it takes a whole 5-10 years for it to get brought up again, because I think it'll help us bring in new businesses to downtown. We're kind of stigmaed, a very conservative area, but they were very accepting of us. We started out kind of the black sheep, having those kind of hours and that kind of establishment, but we've become very community driven, and we see all kinds of people in the community, young people, old people. We kind of cater to everybody. One suggestion I have, instead of acting so quickly on this, is maybe adding extra picnic tables to our outside park areas, and that will increase their seating as well. They can package it to go and walk a couple feet to the park cafe, get it to go, 28, get it to go, and still have their little dining experience in downtown Siloam without permitting alcohol. These people who have these permits, they knew the stipulations when they applied for those permits. It has nothing to do with the COVID-19. They knew that it would have to be restricted and contained to their facility, and they paid to insurance for insurance and upkeep on that. Now that the coronavirus thing has affected them, it might increase their seating a little bit, but the alcohol sales were never promised when they applied for those permits and invested into those liquor licenses. I knew that, and I wanted to have outside seating, so I acquired a place that I could facilitate that safely and legally. I don't think it's something we need to rush into. I'm not against it, but I think it needs some more thought. That's all I have to say.
If you've got something to say, please come up, Bob. Yeah? Okay, that's good. All right. Okay. Are they out in the lobby? Yeah. Don, you want to double check some more folks have come in since, it's Alma? Was it Alma? Yeah. Okay, that's what I got down here, making sure I had that right. Thank you. Thank you, Alma. We want to make sure that anybody's come in. Is there anybody else here in the audience that would like to address this? No one? All right. Then if there's no other public comments, then I'll turn this over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Bob.
I'm going to remove this mask because it's fogging my glasses and I can't see what I read. I've received more response from the public on this entertainment district than any matter since I've been on the board for 7.5 years. 80% of those contacting me asked me to vote against this measure, and of the 20% who asked me to vote for the ordinance, the vast majority of the respondents in their last comment on the email was, "Thank you for listening to the residents of Siloam Springs." And that's exactly what I'm doing. By calling this a temporary ordinance, we're forcing this ordinance through on a single vote with an emergency clause, and in doing so, we're denying many of our citizens the right to make their feelings known on this subject. I don't agree with a single vote, nor do I see any sense of emergency on the subject, at least whether it's temporary or not. I would remind you that in 1913, the income tax was listed as a temporary item. Check your date on the 15th of August or April or whenever it's due now, see if it's temporary. The governor of Arkansas has, effective today, opened restaurants with bars attached. I believe this should eliminate any need for an emergency clause. Most of the restaurants that would be affected by this ordinance have continued to serve the public through drive-up or carry-out service. My wife and I have used several of these services ourselves. While their revenue may have been reduced, they have been able to remain open. Other small businesses in downtown were not so favorably affected. Barbershops, nail salons, dentist offices, chiropractors' offices, and physicians' offices were forced to shut down and have only recently been able to reopen on very restricted basis. Because of the fact this ordinance does not directly benefit most of our small businesses, I believe it is highly discriminatory and it could result in litigation against the city. If a restaurant wishes to serve patrons at a sidewalk table, the server can simply ask alcohol or no alcohol and seat the customer accordingly. Some of us remember going into restaurants and being asked smoking or non-smoking. Alcohol consumption with dinner could be handled the same way, as one of my respondents mentioned, without causing our downtown to become an open bar 3 nights a week. One additional factor that need not be overlooked is in the staff report for Ordinance 2019, and I quote, "Staff is not recommending approval of Ordinance 2019, end quote. Our staff is comprised of knowledgeable individuals who are well versed in day-to-day operations of our city. Their advice should not be readily discarded." This board has strived to make Siloam Springs family-friendly through the development of parks, trails, kayak parks, a beautiful new library, a water feature, an amphitheater. Now is no time to mar that image by passing an ordinance that would allow the open carry of alcohol on downtown streets. I'm a no vote for this ordinance, and I encourage my fellow board members to do the same. Now is no time to cater to a few at the expense of many, as several of my respondents mentioned. By the way, as a fact check on traffic today at 2:12 p.m. this afternoon, there were 97 cars parked and moving on the street downtown. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bob?
Mayor.
Brad?
Man, I wish I could have gone first, Director Coleman, because I'm the one that brought it up and stirred up all those great emotional emails out there. And it just depended on which social media thread you're on, which side of the coin. And I just want to clearly state, I'm doing city business, so I don't get real emotional about it. I'm not threatened by, scare tactics or, those type of things that's on social media. In fact, I find it quite silly. But I do appreciate dialogue and some emails I exchange, and we can respectfully disagree. There's people in the community that, man, I have the highest respect for. Larry's here tonight is one of them. Former Navy, firefighter, paramedic. I mean, how can you not love this guy? We just disagree in one area. That's all it is. I've got brick and mortar businesses in Ward 2 that are asking for help. And this was a tool in the toolbox. We've had alcohol downtown for quite some time now. And we're getting a significant restaurant. I think the name's Whiskey's in it for some weird reason. That's coming into Siloam. We love Callahan's. We didn't quit going there because they serve beer. It doesn't change my lifestyle. I'll still ride my bike downtown and partake of a pint of beer because it's the nature of a Scottishman. That's what we do, and I have bad arthritis. So to each his own, to wherever we roam. A couple of things I point out to my fellow board members is that tourism in the state of Arkansas is a $7 billion industry. $7 billion into the state. And that's brought in by people. That's brought in by your hotel, motel tax. That's a lot of formulas in there, right? But it's total of $7 billion. One of our deals is the ability to bring people to Siloam. So COVID-19, what it's going to find us doing, and I've already done it, is once we ease up the restrictions, we start to roam. The parks are full, right? Every place. City Lake was overwhelmed on the weekends. Memorial Day, unfortunately, I hope the weather's well. This weekend will be a damper for folks, but I bet they want to get out. They're waiting for the restrictions to ease up. They're desiring to get out. We are connected to the corridor. You cannot suppress the growth and development in Northwest Arkansas. We are the fastest growing. It's happening. Anything I could do to help small business, a narrow mind would say it's just a few small businesses. Another point of view would be if it brings people over to Siloam because we're curious for the next couple of months, how's that working out? That means there's more people. More people stop, they go somewhere, they get gas. Maybe they come from out of state. I've never seen us say no to Cherokee Casino, which is all entertainment dollars. And you know how they make your dollars? By drinking and gambling and eating at a great buffet at a discount and all those things. In fact, on the Chamber site, it's a gold member. I've never seen Main Street turn down $1 from the Cherokee Casino. They're a great neighbor. A lot of them live in our community. Many of them go to your churches. And that's just a fact of life. We have a diversity in Siloam Springs. Ward 2 is the most diverse ward, I would say, in the city. And an example of that would be the last controversial thing we had, for those who were on the board, was medical cannabis. And city administrator pointed out we need to do a zoning map. If medical cannabis came to town, we need a mechanism to tax it. So we created a medical marijuana zoning map for dispensary and for an industry. We won't have it in Siloam because we're conservative. Hey, so we did a poll. We were all curious. Ward 2 was the only ward that voted that in, right? The percentage of the voters there were on the yes side. All the other wards were against it. It became state law. You know, I can't deny these facts. These are all facts. So when I've got businesses in Ward 2 in the historical district that reach out to me, I will do everything I can to help them. And that's what brought about tonight and the massive pouring of emails. We have a very conservative town on some parts, but then on the other parts, it's a little bit different. And so that's the yin and yang that we're dealing with here tonight. I appreciate everybody that reached out to me. Had a person call me today. Great phone conversation, and I gave him a couple of numbers out there trying to help people. We politely, hey, have a great evening. We disagreed. An email exchange, provided some information, we disagreed. This is just the beginning of what we're going to be bringing to the table. You're not going to like some of the stuff coming up, but at the end of the day, we've cut 1.3 out of the budget. That's 6.8%. We haven't got the sales tax receipts in yet for the rest, so we're about to find out if we need to do more cuts. I'm a massive believer in the place-based amenities economics, right? So that's where we go from there. And economics are just going to be a driving factor. If we don't think outside the box and how to bring people into this town that we're creating, it's a fantastic town. I love it. I live in the historical district. There's going to be a struggle. You will continue for the next 10 years and the 10 years beyond that to have higher taxes. And that's how you'll pay things, through taxes. Unless we start thinking of how do we bring people into our town and how do we get their money. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Mr. Mayor,
Mindy?
to pull this off for just a second too. So I've got a prepared statement as well. As I've told people when asked how I'm going to vote on issues, I do try my best to wait until the night of the vote to make my final decision, because I do want to hear from anyone who wants to speak on the issue at hand. That doesn't mean that I don't have thoughts on the issue and even leanings one way or the other, but I do want to hear from citizens before deciding how to vote. And we accept comments from citizens right up until the time we do vote. Since this issue was brought to our attention, we've received much feedback from residents, and for that, I am really appreciative. Thank you all for coming here tonight. Thank you for speaking. Several have taken time to articulate their thoughts in emails. Others have called. Some are in attendance tonight. As of right before this meeting, I myself had been in correspondence with 58 different people, either through emails that they sent, texts that they sent, calls, but 58 different people. But thanks again for expressing your opinion. I think this has been a wonderful time to get citizens involved and be able to dialogue this issue. Before I tell you my thoughts on the matter, though, I do want to share my thoughts on something that relates to not only this issue, but all issues brought to the board. When a citizen, business representative, city staff member, anyone within the city brings an idea to the board that could help with quality of life, public safety, economic development, etc. in Siloam, in my opinion, it is our job to consider that idea, no matter what our personal opinions about the idea may be. Once an idea is on the table or agenda, it is our job to listen to what citizens have to say about the idea. It is then our job to use that feedback to help us make a decision that we feel is best for the city and the citizens. That's exactly what we've done in this issue. Director Burns was contacted by restaurant owners who desired to serve alcohol in their outdoor seating areas. He then asked the board to consider it and staff to look into it. The staff determined that the only option for allowing alcohol in outdoor seating areas located on public sidewalks is to establish an entertainment district. The board is now considering whether or not that's feasible for Siloam. A large part of that consideration is listening to what residents have to say about the issue. All that to say, I'm not ashamed to be considering this issue. I'm doing what, in my opinion, is my job as a board director. Now to my thoughts on the matter. Based on what we're hearing from the public, here's a summary of what I think people think are the pros and cons. Some of the pros. It would provide continued revenue for the businesses and the city, and increase during this time of COVID. It's important to the vitality of struggling businesses downtown, and we've heard from a couple that are struggling right now. It's a good option for current social distancing requirements. It allows customers who enjoy a drink with their meal an opportunity to do so outside. So those are some of the pros as I've heard them. Some of the cons. While it could help some businesses, it could also hurt some businesses. Families may not be comfortable having their children around those who are not drinking, and therefore may choose not to come downtown during those hours when drinking is allowed in public areas. Someone mentioned tonight there might be an increase of noise. Someone also mentioned it could change the character of downtown. To some, it takes away from the family focus of the downtown area and even Siloam in general. It increases city spending during a time of having to cut back. We've already been told there's about $3,000 cost in signage. Yes, we didn't hear what the cost for extra patrolling would be, but I do think that was mentioned that there would be some extra patrolling. It may contribute to underage drinking, and we do have we are a college community, and a lot of those college students are under 21. It may contribute to underage drinking. Increasing the numbers of tables and chairs on sidewalks could make it difficult to get around on sidewalks downtown. And because the state entertainment district ordinance is still so new, we really don't have many facts to support the benefit of having such a district, what the benefit would be to downtown businesses. Speaking of facts, here are a few I've gathered. Director Coleman asked for this information. Based on what I could tell from the report, there were 9 alcohol-related citations in the downtown area between May 19 and May 20. With an entertainment district, and this is not fact, this is with an entertainment district, there will be more police presence. That's a fact, but that could be good. It could decrease citations because there's more police presence, or it could increase because there's more police presence. It could go either way. Based on my research, I was able to find 5 cities in Arkansas that have entertainment districts: Little Rock, Mountain Home, Hot Springs, Texarkana, El Dorado. A handful of other cities in Arkansas are considering them, including Fayetteville and Fort Smith. My understanding that those 2 cities in particular are seeking to establish entertainment districts only for special events, not every week. At an October Fayetteville City Council meeting, the issue was tabled, and to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't come back up yet. But in a presentation to the Fayetteville City Board, the person that was in charge of it said that he wants to continue looking into having an entertainment district in Fayetteville, but they have some planning they want to do. And interestingly, the businesses over there at the time were saying, let's slow down, let's not do this so quickly. So all that to say, if we were to pass an ordinance allowing an entertainment district in Siloam, we would be the first in Northwest Arkansas. Is that something that we want to pioneer? That's the question. Restaurants can continue to serve alcohol inside. That's a fact, regardless of what we decide tonight. Not establishing an entertainment district would not take away this privilege. While I understand the reasoning behind the request, I feel there are more disadvantages than advantages. Of the 54 people that I've spoken with, let me see my notes here. 18 were in favor of an entertainment district, and 43 are not in favor of the entertainment district. In talking with citizens about the issue, most with concerns about this sort of district also understand the reasoning, and they are not opposed to allowing customers to drink on patios outside of restaurants. I think that's really important for you restaurant owners to know. They want you to succeed as well. They're not opposed to your drinking, or there being drinking. If there were a way to allow this option without establishing a district, I think most would be okay with it. But it appears our only option is to establish the district, which allows open containers on public sidewalks, and many residents are concerned about that. I do want our downtown businesses to succeed, and I've been very impressed by the creative ways they've managed to continue providing goods and services throughout this challenging time. I strongly encourage residents to support our local businesses, regardless of where they are in the city, by purchasing their goods and services. If you're not comfortable going to a restaurant, you can always buy a gift card. Our farmers market has made it very easy to purchase gift cards online, and then you just go pick it up on Saturday. There are ways you can support these local businesses, and I encourage you to do so. If you aren't one that consumes alcohol, then then get coffee or a soda or something besides water to give them a little extra revenue. As for expanding outside seating areas, which is also part of this, I suggest we leave it up to businesses and their neighbors to work out extending their outdoor seating. The staff report states specifically that staff is not recommending approval of an ordinance to allow an entertainment district. I do not recommend approval of this ordinance either.
Thank you, Mindy.
And I'm sorry, that was so long.
What have we come to expect?
Yeah, exactly. Didn't want to disappoint.
I'm just glad you have it written down already, because if you ramble like me, you would still be listening.
That's why I write it now.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Marla.
I've received several emails, phone calls, and talked to some people in person about this. I know the downtown businesses are struggling, but our city's struggling too, and that's my utmost concern, is that we keep an eye on taking care of everybody. I know the expense of $3,000 was mentioned, but we know it'll be more. The revenue that we're going to get from the alcohol sales is not going to be enough to cover, I don't believe. If it is, I'm worried, to cover the hiring of more police staff for after hours. Also in here you mentioned that you were going to draft a form for them to give to the abutting businesses. I don't think staff needs to bother with that. I agree with Director Hunt that that's something the businesses need to work out with their neighbor, and if they can't get along with their neighbor, we don't need to interfere. It's something they need to work out. And yes, I'm conservative, but I'm not against drinking. I have a family member that every time we go out to eat pizza or anything has a drink. It doesn't bother me in the least bit. I know there's revenue from it. I don't mind that. I don't want it carried from business to business. And the young lady from the Park Place, yes, that's a concern. Insurance for her. If someone was to have an accident and a cup with her business name on it was found in their car and it had remnants of alcohol in it, and it was a drunk driving accident, who do you think they'd come after? So I understand that. And I do think that we're jumping in head first, feet first, arm first, everything. We're not thinking. We need to step back and see what other towns are doing. I'm a no.
Thank you, Marla. Lisa, you look prepared to speak. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, Lisa.
I didn't write anything out. I woke up with an ear infection this morning. I like what Jasmine had to say about Siloam takes care of each other, and I completely agree. I think during this, I have seen Siloam residents backing local businesses. And so I think at our last board goals meeting, Philip mentioned that restaurant revenue is up, has shown that it's up. So that gives me confidence that we are backing our downtown businesses. We're backing all our businesses. We want to support all of Siloam Springs. And I will have a no vote, because I want to keep the unique values of Siloam Springs.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Carol.
When we first had this brought up to us by Brad, out of respect for Brad, and I think it is my duty as a board member, when there is an opportunity to look at ways that other businesses can increase their revenue, whether it's a business downtown, whether it's a business along 412, or wherever it may be, it is our duty to look and see the possibilities of that. And that is one reason why I was a little bit more pro for this when Brad brought it up, because I wanted it brought to where we would discuss it and we would vote on it, which I think is what should happen. I, too, have gotten a lot of emails, texts, phone calls, probably the most phone calls I have ever received on any item that is on our agenda. Everybody was most gracious, gave me their feelings, and I am one that does not make my mind up before I come to a meeting. I listen to everybody, and I think that is my job, to listen to every citizen, every business, before I make my decision. Even listening to the public that comes before us at the microphone before I make a decision. I want to make the appropriate decision that affects all of our citizens. This is a very, very difficult issue. We have businesses that are fighting probably for their survival, and that makes me very sad. But I also have to think about what the majority of the citizens said to me, because I don't just represent a ward, I represent everyone in Siloam Springs. And the majority of those citizens said, we feel this is not appropriate for Siloam Springs. It wasn't the drinking, it was walking around with a drink in their hand. That is what they're objecting to. And I can understand that. We probably are not ready for this. But this is one reason why I wanted this to come to a vote. We were going to have to vote on it. At some point, was going to come to us. It's been discussed ever since this act was made by the state. So I am going to be a no vote, but I want you to know why and why I was wanting to bring it forward. And I appreciate the time. I appreciate all of the citizens that reached out to me and gave me their true feelings, how much they love Siloam. That's why they're here. That's why they are fighting for their community and for their family values and the opportunity to come downtown. I don't think we're going to, even if this passes, and it might, I don't know what the vote's going to be. I don't think we're going to turn into a Wild West down Broadway. And we're not going to have drunks rolling around in the streets. I don't see that. But I just don't know that this is the appropriate time. Thank you.
Reed, are you going to have something to say, or you're going to be the lone one that doesn't?
No, I
Okay.
have something to say. Kudos to Director Burns for exposing the passion of the people. I have had more activity on this than any item we've dealt with in my tenure here. But even more than the vote yes, vote no, with the exception of a couple out of about, 75 or 80, everyone addressed me with respect. And when they expressed their opinion, it wasn't down to me. I felt like we were able to get along, communicate. And to me, that says a lot about our people. It says it's more than just a yes or no vote. This is about a passion that lies within us. And tonight I have a word of the day. This word is precipice. Yeah, I had to look it up. We're standing on that cliff. Right now, we have the opportunity to make right choices, wise decisions, to be the community that I believe we already are, so that in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we're not shooting an arrow that's just a little bit skewed now that will end up being way off course. So we have an opportunity to look out over this precipice, can't even say the word now, and do right with it. What do we do with an awakened passion? You know, I was in business, small businessman, and I was in this community when we survived 9/11. I remember where I was, what I was doing when that came over the radio. I also was in business when we as a community survived 2008. I was so smart that I decided to add on to my business during that year. And I couldn't even get a bid from somebody because prices were going up so quickly. But you know what? We made it. this community has the resolve to do what's necessary and to continue to be a strength and to be a signpost, not only for this area, Northwest Arkansas, but in my opinion, to the world. I live here because this is the greatest place. Concerning entertainment district, I do not believe this is our time for it, and I will be voting no. But I do not want to vote no and go hide my hole, or my head in a hole, sorry. I want to vote no, but I want to do something about it. When this was brought up earlier, I said to Philip, I want something we can put our teeth into. I wish I could come before you now and say I have that answer. I do not. But I do believe the number of people that have contacted me and the rest of us on this board, somebody has got to be able to assemble a group that can help put together a plan for us to go forward from pandemic to glory. And I'm not just here being a cheerleader, but we have an awesome place here. Let's live it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Reed.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Since it's a no-brainer, I'm not really good at math, but we could figure it out pretty quick. You know, the key thing about being on the board, and it's my second term, and I brought up some things that got shot down. We just did it in the workshop. Too radical, too fast, moving there, going there. But when you represent a ward, you have a job to do. And this one here, the board can thank me later for getting the community's pulse checked and to keep you busy since the workshop. I know you didn't have anything else to do, so I appreciate it. I'll just share one word because I'm bringing up this place-based amenity economics. So amenities, something that helps to provide comfort, convenience, or enjoyment. Something provides smoothness or pleasantness in a social relationship. And so as we look out to the future, I think this is going to come up again. I hope the folks that are directly affected will follow Reed's recommendation. I hope the Chamber and Main Street will work together and maybe present something to the city that might help them out in our partnership. That's an important partnership because we give them a contract every year and throw them a little money. So now would be a good time to get some of the leadership in the community together and come up with some ideas. I would like to say to the businesses that reached out to me, Ivoryville, Brick Ballroom, Broadway Cafe, Tito's, Fratelli's, keep going down the list. We brought it up, it got shot down. Everybody on the board is asking the community to shop small and to eat at these places. It's unfortunate right now, some folks are still waiting on their stimulus check. It hasn't come in yet. So the answers just aren't that simple. A lot of people in our community cannot afford to go out and eat right now. They're struggling to make ends meet. Marla has pointed out they're passing out food left and right. There's a large need in the community. This is just one of the needs. I hope this all goes away in 6 months. I don't think it's going to go away in 6 months. I hope you keep praying. I hope somebody in this crowd has a better solution. But I can tell you this, when Ward 2, if you're a business in Ward 2 and you're asked your representative to do something, I hope that person stands up and presents that without fear. And I hope that person stands up and looks at the community directly in the eye and say, hey, when you use social media, use it in a positive way and spread correct information. Don't spread fear. Don't threaten people that you won't vote for them later. Especially a guy in me, Ward 2, probably not going to work. If you saw my face right now, I'm just happy I wore the mask. I was entertained tonight. I thank you guys for coming. I anticipated this. but was asked to bring it forward, and I thank the board for their consideration. I value your opinion. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Brad, for bringing it up, because we do care about the businesses in Siloam Springs. And I appreciate all the citizens that have contacted us. It encourages me as a board of director to know that people care what we are doing and what we are voting on. And we encourage not only on this subject, but any subject that comes before us to please give us your opinion. We want to know what you are thinking. It does matter to us. And on a side note, Kevin, I'm drinking Sprite because my doctor put me on clear liquids for today.
The others? All right. Well, I received a large number of contacts, a couple phone calls. I was out in my shop and didn't realize my phone was ringing, so I didn't respond to them. I apologize. But I did read their voice messages, got a lot of emails and texts, and that's to a person who doesn't even have a vote. So I knew this was going to be a well-attended meeting tonight, and first of all, I want to thank you individually, or every one of you, for being here this evening and expressing your opinions and the civil manner in which way you did it. You did a very fantastic job. You thought out what you were going to say when you came up here, and both sides were represented. And I think when we walk out here, we're not going to be shaking hands because you can't social distance with handshaking. But I think we're going to walk out here. I remember when I was on the board. I've been on the board a year and a half for, let's see, how long was I on the board? 6 years. I've been on the board for 6 years. When Director Burns came on the scene, Director Coleman came on the scene. And that was the year, 2012, that Siloam Springs, Benton County and Siloam Springs went wet. I never in my wildest imagination thought that would have happened. It did. It didn't start in Siloam. It started over on the corridor, or in Bentonville, basically. That was the city that probably pushed it the most. They had more to gain because they had more places to serve alcohol. It made them the wettest city in a dry county. But let's keep in mind, as Director Burns has said, as Director Smiley has said, and basically everybody here has said, there's certain aspects of what we brought tonight, what was brought to us tonight, that need consideration, and I think are not dead. But let's remember that yes, we are in a wet county, and the Siloam Springs chose to be wet by a majority of our voters. It wasn't. Siloam wasn't the only town in Benton County that would have passed it by itself. It passed. It was a majority of the voters voted to go wet. Keep that in mind. So I know you all. Some people are more apt to get out and make their opinions known publicly, but there's a lot of people. Your next door neighbor, and they may be for this, but they just didn't speak out about it. I've always said that I thought what tipped the scale in 2012 was probably the folks who not necessarily go to a liquor store, but they wanted to have the opinion. I heard this voiced many times. Sure would like to be able to sit down for a meal when I go out to eat and have a glass of wine. I heard that a lot. And to me, the thing that bothers me the most about this is the movement back and forth and the traveling with. I don't see the reason for that. I'm not getting after staff. They're doing what they can do. I see no reason for there to be able to get up and carry that and walk around town with the drink in your hand. That's not the image that I want to see either, personally. But if they want to sit down and have a glass of wine or a beer with their meal, then that's their choice. As an adult, that is their choice. But that was the only thing that I couldn't get my arms around, was the having it in a glass and or a cup and walking around the downtown streets. I just wasn't sure about that. But anyway, now that I've said my piece, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Brad?
I'll make the motion to make it easy on everybody else. Place ordinance number 20-9 on its first and only reading, suspending the rules, and by reading title only and declaring an emergency.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Mayor,
Yes, Reed.
would you tell us what we're voting on for here first?
Okay. Okay, you're voting on the ordinance as it appears in your packet.
Okay.
You're voting to place it on the board, place it before the board for a vote, and you're voting to suspend the rules, meaning that if it gets 5 votes for, then we do not have to read the entire ordinance.
This is not for or against this.
This
Just for the
is
first part.
Yeah, that's all this is doing. This
Thank you.
if it goes forward to vote to approve it, that's down after Philip has read the title. But that's all you're doing right now.
Thank you.
And a vote to place it on the agenda, or a vote to place it on the table for by suspending the rules and reading title only. You can vote for it, and it does not mean that you're going to vote for it when it comes time to approve it.
In fact, is it my understanding that if we vote to put it on its first and final reading, then we're not having to read the whole thing twice, basically?
Right. Well, there's only going to be one reading. If it passes with a 5 vote, then all we read is the title. If it passes with a simple majority, then we have to read the entire ordinance. If it
doesn't pass,
if it does not pass, if we don't get a simple majority, which is 4, then it's dead. It's dead in the water right there.
Okay.
But a vote for passage of the motion does not bind you to voting for it whenever we call for approval of the motion. All right, unless there's further discussion, then I'll call for a roll call. Renee?
Miley,
no.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
No.
Rissler,
No.
Coleman,
No.
Carroll,
No.
Sappington.
No.
Motion is not approved. It fails. Ordinance 209 will not move any further. Thank you for your discussion. Thank you, audience. If you'd love to, we'd love to have you stay. We have a lot of interesting things coming up here. Just because this was the headlining ordinance, we got a lot of stuff going on. And thank you downtown businesses. Thank you downtown businesses. We appreciate you. All right. Now then, how about let's moving on to ordinance 20-10, first reading, net metering code amendments. Phil Stokes, you wake up back there? All right.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Phil Stokes, Electric Director. I'd like to bring before you tonight the ordinance of net metering. First of all, I'd like to say that we are very supportive of renewables. We have a floating platform on our water storage area that we have solar panels on that we're doing a project to see how feasible it is, and it's looking very promising. And so our power supplier, GRDA, Grand River Dam Authority, is really into renewables. Last year they had up to 71% one time of their generation portfolio in renewables. They are heavily invested in hydro. They have the lakes, Grand Lake, Hudson Lake. They have the pump storage unit, and then they have several wind farms out in western Oklahoma. So, but we feel like change is needed, and the change is to keep our system healthy. I have a slide here showing a simple metering on a house. It's using 1,000 kilowatt hours. That's the average monthly usage of a home. And what we're showing here is the city is supplying the house through a meter with its electricity at 9.78 cents. That's the residential rate for homes. Behind the city part there's a lot of moving parts to get electricity to your home. We have miles and miles of line, distribution wires, poles, switches, fuses, substations, tree trimming. We do a lot of testing, and we have all kinds of metering going on. And so there's just a lot of moving parts to get electricity from the city, from our supplier to the city, to the home. And we spend about $4 million annually here in the city of Siloam Springs to make sure that the system works properly. The next slide illustrates a solar panel that is now added into the generation mix. We're still assuming this home is using 1,000 kilowatt hours. The city is providing power to it along with the solar panel. And in this illustration, we're showing that this solar panel is making more than what the home is using, and so it is now moving 100 kilowatt hours back into the city's system. And what we're showing here is our revenue to the city, since the solar panel is there, is basically about half of what it would be without the solar panel. The extra kilowatt hours, it shows there as times 2.6 cents, represents the excess that the solar panel makes. This is the way it's currently being used, and the 2.6 cents represents the avoided cost that we would have if we had bought the electricity from GRDA. That's how we come up with this 2.6 cents. That's the average of last year's cost from GRDA. And so might point out that this solar panel is making more than what it's using for the home. It's going out on a system that the solar panel didn't help pay for to maintain. It's using it to get its power out on the system at no charge. The next slide represents kind of what we're wanting to do. It's called a buy all, sell all. So basically you have the home still using 1,000 kilowatt hours. 500 is supplied by the city. The 500 from the solar panel is going to the home. And so everything that the home consumes, these 1,000 kilowatt hours, is at the rate of 9.78 cents. And then everything that the solar panel makes, that it generates, then the city would purchase from the customer at the avoided cost that we would have paid GRDA for. So we're paying the solar customer for their power at the rate that we would have bought it from our power supplier. Our current net metering policy, our customer is only charged for electricity from the city. And what we found is when the customer buys the solar panel, what they're doing is they're still out about the same amount of money. They're just paying, generally most of them are financed, and so they're paying a finance charge to some finance company for their solar panels. And so they're not keeping the money in the city, they're paying a finance company for the solar panels. And GRDA is penalizing us for going over our capped amount that we can allow in the city, that they allow for the city to have in renewables. And so it's not a big number right now, but it could turn into a big number as these solar becomes more popular. And so we feel like we need to change this policy. We wanted to limit it limit the residential to 10 kW. And this is basically just the size of the solar panels that you put on your house. If you go over 10 kW, and if you have a lot of residents putting solar on their house, then we would have to potentially upgrade our system to handle this additional load. You know what happens when a cloud comes over, the solar panels stop working, and the cloud leaves, why then it starts making electricity again. And so it can really have an impact on our system. And so we could be exposed to some really expensive upgrades on our switches and our lines. And so we feel like this is a good number to go with. It's interesting that solar peaks at noon. Typically what you see is a 4-hour window that solar panels make electricity. On the other side of that shoulder, they do make a little bit, but very little compared to what they do from like 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock, okay? And so during that peak time, around noon is when they peak, they're making a lot of electricity. Well, in Siloam Springs, we peak in the winter times in the mornings, and then during the summer times, we peak around 3:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And so when these solar panels are peaking, they're not helping the city out as far as reducing our need for electricity. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to think about, is that, you know, they help the customer out, but they don't help the city out as far as reducing loading on the lines. And when you have a large amount of solar panels on a system and a cloud comes over, it really throws things in a oscillation, if you will. And so we've got to be careful how much we put on our system. We also wanted to allow the customers who have invested in solar panels to have a grandfathered in for 12 years on the existing rate that they understood that they had when they bought their system. And so we feel change is needed to protect our system, to keep from giving preferential treatment to people who don't have solar panels. We want to keep our rates low. If we lose big revenue, we're going to have to do something to adjust, and raising rates or reducing services is kind of the options. And we want to keep our infrastructure reliable so we can have money to operate our system in a reliable manner. And so we'd recommend you approve this ordinance, and we're available for any questions.
Thank you, Phil. Any comments from the audience?
Brett Castleman. I live at 1609 Savannah Lane. My wife and I got our solar panels and got online with those solar panels early in January. So we're grandfathered in on this proposal. However, you know, one of the concerns that I bring and my wife brings is the importance of clean renewable energy. And though at one point GRDA generated up to 71% through hydro and wind, there's still a need, we believe, for much more renewable and clean energy use, not just here in Siloam Springs, but overall. And I'm just coming with some questions that I don't fully understand from the letters that were sent out and from the explanation that was in that letter. One is a reference to fixed electric costs, which seem to be the primary issue driving the new policy. And I'm not sure what on my bill goes to cover those fixed energy costs for the city of Siloam Springs. There are taxes for the city, for the county, and the state. Is the portion for the city covered from just the taxes listed on my bill as city, or where does the payment that the city makes to cover those fixed electric costs come from? That's one of my questions. Also, another question is, since the city buys back excess solar that a customer produces at 6.6 cents, 2.6 cents, and then sells back that electricity that we have provided to the city at 9.8 or 9.78 as the slide showed, the city is generating income on the energy that it buys from solar customers. And is this profit by the city being figured into how it might offset the fixed electric costs of the solar customer? In other words, can there be an adjustment for what this customer owes toward fixed electric costs based on what the city makes from customer-generated solar energy? And if that's possible, which I don't know why it wouldn't be, I'm not sure that I see the need for the big change that's being proposed. For example, in March and April, my panels sent 498 kilowatt hours electricity back to the city. The city is supposed to pay us for that at 2.6 cents. And that would generate for my wife and me income for our household at $12.94. The city is able to sell that electricity at 9.78 cents, which is income for the city of $48.80 approximately. That's a difference of $35.86 that the city is making on this electricity that we have generated. And in the explanation of the financial needs that are being caused by the solar customers, that doesn't seem to have been a factor in anything that was mentioned. I'm also interested in how many solar customers there are in the city and how much is the city losing in hard figures because of those customers. Is the primary concern for the anticipation of additional solar customers coming online, or is it how large is the immediate need, in other words? I haven't seen anything related to that in terms of just the cost to the city, and that would be helpful. The new policy reads that solar customers' usage will be metered separately from the solar panels production. Customers will be billed for all the electricity used at 9.8 cents. Then will be refunded for the solar panels generation at the city's cost of 2.6 cents. Is it possible for the city to provide an actual example of how the new policy will work in comparison to the current policy for me? Okay, so that I can have side by side how much advantage solar is for me now, what would be the change for me if I were under the new policy. That would be helpful information for me to have, and I don't have it. In other words, what's the cost difference for a solar customer under the current policy versus the proposed policy? It seems to me that the board needs answers to those questions before it can adequately appreciate the situation in which we as solar customers are in. And I don't know if you have those answers or have raised those questions for discussion, but I think those are certainly things that I would like answered for myself, and I hope that you want answered before you make a decision on this.
Thank you, Brett. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you with your mask on. I think he's better looking with the mask on, don't you? No, you would disagree with that, wouldn't you? Okay. All right. Well, Brett, you asked some really good questions, and I saw a lot of note taking going on between board members and Phil back in the back and Philip over here. So this is, of course, an ordinance which will require 3 readings. And a lot of times the first time the ordinance is read, when a lot of information is requested, or a lot of research has to be done between now and the next time it comes before the board, or at the next board meeting. And I can anticipate your attendance here, and I can anticipate that there'll be some responses back regarding those. We don't normally respond back and get into a debate during this period of time, but I understand it will be addressed.
Yeah, let me say this. My wife and I don't mind paying our fair share for fixed electric costs.
Right.
By no means. But neither do we want a policy that suddenly is so much to our disadvantage that what we were hoping to gain in terms of going to solar, not only financially but also in terms of renewable energy, is maintained. And if it's too much of a disadvantage for a solar customer with this change, it's going to discourage other customers from pursuing it. And I think that the more the better for me in terms of clean energy.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Castleman, 1609 Savannah Lane. Is it okay, I don't know the rules, to ask Mr. Stokes, who has been wonderful to talk to me on the phone and
No, you may not. Yes, you can.
I
Yes,
can?
you ask. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Stokes, I'm the lady you've been talking to on the phone, and he has been wonderful. Let me just say that for the record. On this limit, 10 kilowatt residential renewable limit, what does that mean? In other words, we made 300 and something kilowatt hours over the last 2 months for the city. So what is that limit, that residential renewable limit? What does that mean?
Okay, each solar
Bill, you'll need to come up here and address the mic, please. Thank you.
They rate the solar panel sizes on KW, and what you're thinking of is KWH. And so kilowatt hours is what you use throughout the month. Okay, and KW is how large your panel is when you buy it. So you might, like, each panel is like 300 watts. And so if you had 2 panels, that'd be 600 watts. Okay, and so if you take 10,000 divided by 300, that would be how many panels that you could have on your house. Okay, so that's just a way of rating how many panels that you can have. And so each panel on the average is around 300 watts. Okay, and if you did 10 of them, that'd be 3,000 watts. And so that's kind of, does that answer your question?
Well,
so that just tells you how many panels that you can have on your house.
a limit of 10 panels.
10,000 watts is what you're limited to. Each panel is 300. Okay.
So that would be approximately about between 30 and 35 panels is the maximum the 30 and 35 panels would be the maximum you could have. Okay. 33.333333. So I was close with my head there, wasn't I? Close enough for government work. It doesn't always work when you say that here, does it? It's close enough for government work. That's what I grew up with. My dad used to say that. That's close enough for government work. All right. Thank you very much for being here and making your concerns. And Robbie, I apologize. I remember I got your email, the very first one you sent out. So thank you for addressing the city and the issue and whatever. Well, we appreciate you, and your email was not mean-spirited in any way at all, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the audience?
Before I start, Brad Burns, I'd like to say that...
How about name and address?
Larry Kennemore, 207 Western Hills Drive, Siloam Springs. Appears you got to have your bunker gear on when you come in here, buddy. That's all I got to say. I'm also a member of the Board of Directors of the Arkansas Environmental Education Association, and I'm here to speak to you about net metering and the environment. Renewable energy is a priority for Arkansas and Siloam Springs. if we are to protect the environment for the future of our children, grandchildren, and for me, my great-grandchildren. The facts are, Siloam Springs signed a contract with Garda in 2007 and now finds itself under a penalty clause in that contract. With this ordinance 2010, the city is attempting to pass along that penalty to the citizens that have installed solar panels or other renewable energy. Why should the citizens of Siloam Springs that are protecting the environment be penalized for poor contract negotiations? This contract is a bad contract for the citizens of Siloam Springs in that Garda set a very low amount of renewable energy production number in that contract, which has been exceeded by the citizens of Siloam Springs already. Why would there be such a clause in that contract unless Garda is attempting to protect their business model that is destroying the environment? You say that Garda at times reached 71% renewable generation. You need to understand the way Garda came up with that number, and that is Siloam Springs and the people that have solar and generate solar are responsible for that 71%, because solar generation by individual homes is figured into that 71% that they tout as renewable generation. You say that setting limits on renewable energy protects the lines and the switches from being overloaded, forcing the city to install expensive upgrades. Well, I heard that again tonight. However, I didn't hear what it is, how it is, what the expense is. It just seems that every time something comes before this board with all these people speaking about it and the things they bring up, they don't give us the facts so that we know what they're talking about. It's factually wrong and misleading. Solar generation in Siloam Springs does not overload the system, but if so, why not say how instead of placing wording that attempts to scare the public without facts to back it up? Point to one city, just one city in Arkansas, that has had to do so when it has increased renewable energy by its citizens. I'll give you just Fayetteville as one example. You outline a fiscal impact that is also misleading with numbers of $1,395 and the city is losing $697.77. I'd ask this one question. If the city credits a Siloam Springs citizen, solar generating resident, for 2.6 cents per kilowatt hours, but then puts back on the grid and resells it to Siloam Spring residents for 9.7 cents, how does that relate to the fiscal impact you attempt to scare residents with? The city is making 6 cents per kilowatt hour. So why should the citizens of Siloam Springs that generate electricity cleanly suffer because of poor fiscal management by the city or whoever negotiated this contract? I would point to Clarksville, Arkansas. You all here know they won that award from the Arkansas Municipal League for building a solar power plant that produces all the electricity that the city uses and needs. I would also point to the city of Camden, Arkansas. It's the only city in Arkansas, because of their solar generation by the individual homes, that has reduced their electrical cost. $4 million a year expense, solar or not, sticking to the wires and the poles. I'm just telling you. I mean, there's going to be electricity going through those wires. They're going to go across those poles. They're going to go across those switches, whether they're from solar panels or they're from Guard over there. So I'd ask you one question. Where are we at, Siloam Springs?
Anyone else?
I'm a little nervous. My name is Trish Humans, and I live at 701 Mimosa Street. And my husband and I are here tonight. We actually are solar panel owners. We're, I think, one of the very first families that put solar panels in. We've had our solar panels for 9 years. We have 23 on our roof. We have about a 3.5 kilowatt system. So we have one of the older systems with the grandfather clause. Even if this passed, to be honest with you, we're going to be okay. But there was one aspect to this that was important enough to me that I felt like I needed to get involved. And as I was sitting back here, I completely agree with everything that the Castlemans have said and that Mr. Larry, I didn't get your last name, has said. We are very confused with the math and the way that this is set up and the understanding of how we are costing the city money. But there is one other aspect that I wanted to point out. I actually sat in on the workshop that you all had with the gentleman from Little Rock, and it was good because we got some information, kind of trying to understand the premise of what you were trying to point out. But a lot of the information was very technical. And so there's an aspect to the solar energy that is more than just the money that's involved. Whenever we produce that solar energy, those solar panels that are on my roof, they make solar power. And we make at our house probably an average of about 20 kilowatts a day. It's not very much. That power comes into my house. That is my personal property. That is my personal electricity. That is my electricity. I own that electricity. And so it comes into my house and I use it. Well, when we put those solar panels in 9 years ago, we thought that the city was going to pay us for our extra electricity. Every day we have a little bit of electricity that we don't use, and we sell it back to the city. We thought that they were going to pay us the same price that we purchase electricity from. But they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're only going to pay you 2.6 cents, even though we charge everybody else in the city 9.8 cents. Well, that really bummed us out because for two things. First of all, that meant it was going to take a lot longer for us to pay off our solar panels. And we knew that going into it. We made that decision. We did not finance ours. We were putting ours in during a time when the president at the time was really encouraging solar panel or green energy. And so we got enough tax credit from our federal taxes and our state credit to be able to pay cash. But we knew that it was going to take a long time to pay those off. But when we realized that we weren't going to get a one-to-one retail credit, it extended that time. So it's taking us probably about, 14 years to pay off these solar panels. So the other thing that did, or the other thing that it motivated us to do, was to use our electricity. We don't really want to sell our electricity to the city because we don't get a good deal. We want to use the electricity that we produce because it saves us money. So that electricity comes into my house, and if I have any left over, I sell it to the city. Well, this new ordinance, what they want to do is they want to put a special meter on my solar panels. Because right now, we all have a meter on our house that tells the city how much energy we are buying from the city. Well, most people in here get their energy from only one place, and that's from the city. But I have solar panels, so I get my energy from two places. I get them from my solar panels, and I get them from the city. Right now, the city doesn't really know how much electricity my solar panels are making. And so what they want to do is they want to put a meter on my solar panels. And they want to say, okay, we know that you made that energy. You did that. You paid for everything. All that infrastructure, everything. I paid for that. That's my property. Even the two-way meter that is on my house, I had to pay for that. But the city says they want to come in. They want to monitor my solar panels so that they can charge me 9.6 cents for all the electricity that I am producing. They're charging me for something that they didn't sell me. That's my personal property. And the way I kind of picture this is think about a garden. If you had a garden and you decided you were going to plant a garden and you were going to put all of the energy into making that garden and you watered it and you took care of it and you provided the entire infrastructure for that garden, decided to grow tomatoes. And you knew that it would probably take a couple years of growing tomatoes to pay off the infrastructure of that garden. But you just, you like tomatoes. They're healthier for you if you grow them yourself. They taste better. So you decide to do that. But then the city came to you and said, you know what, we sell tomatoes too, and we don't really like you making your own tomatoes. So we're going to install a camera, and we're going to keep track of all the tomatoes that you grow, and we're going to charge you 10 cents for every tomato that you grow. And at the end of the month, we're going to give you a 2.6 cent credit for those tomatoes. It's similar to that. The idea is kind of a government overreach. You're letting the city come in and basically charge me for my own produced electricity. And so that is another reason why I think you should vote against this ordinance. And then also along, like they said, with the environmental issues, our panels, we put those in, and I told you that it would take probably about 14, maybe 15 years to pay off. Under the new ordinance, if we were to try to put solar panels in with the current system that we have, it would take us almost 40 years to pay off those solar panels. If you pass this ordinance, you will guarantee nobody will ever put a residential solar panel on their roof again because they won't be able to afford it. And so as we try to encourage green energy and look towards the future, this ordinance would not accomplish, I think, what our city would like to be known for, the legacy that we would like to have. So I encourage you to vote against this ordinance.
Anyone else? Okay, being none, then I'll turn it over to the board for comments and/or questions of staff.
Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
I'll kick it off. So in the city's attempt to be proactive instead of reactive, when you move into a city that many moons ago before my time had set up a contract to own their own electricity and distribute it, it is what brought Siloam Springs to where it is today. If you were to look at the budget and what services is paid out of electrical, in our earlier conversation, I'm seeing a movement towards how we take money out of Siloam. So the question I would come back is, we've asked staff in the past to be proactive. They are now proactive, and I am about green energy. We've got a master plan for crosswalks, and if you look around town, you'll see that they've got a solar panel sitting on front of them. We used to call it the Coral Sea. Now, whatever you guys are calling it, when we remember Jim Coral back in the day, that was going to be a great lake. We're going to fish in it, have sidewalks. It was going to be a fantastic thing. And even today, they're still trying to make it better. And that's why on the solar side on that. And I appreciate the discussion. And once again, 3 readings. And I'm sure the questions asked tonight won't be answered completely, but I feel confident on the second reading they will come back locked and loaded. I would just caution about a city our size, proactive, reactive. If you are not looking for today for external sources of income and revenue, and you continue to grow and push green, and we don't have a plan in place, and it depletes that large fund that makes this machine Siloam go, we're going to be in a real pickle. And when I mean we're going to be in a real pickle, it's generations will be in a real pickle. So keep bringing the questions. I'm more than positive staff will answer those. I don't have solar. My neighbor has solar, and he has a place downtown, and he's a California guy, moved back here. It's big in California. Wind is big in California. I'm with you 100%. Unfortunately, a large part of our budget comes out of this system, and I think we need to be very cautious on what formula we use and trying to make folks happy outside of the grandfather. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Marla?
Thank you all for coming in, and Ms. Humans, thank you. You're wonderful. That was a great explanation. I appreciate it. I'm one of those persons that I'm thinking, like, when I see that solar panel commercial on TV, I'm going, hey, I can do that for $13.50. Well, I wasn't understanding everything. And I've learned so much at these last couple of workshops that we've had. And I think solar panels are great. If I could afford them, I'd have them. I do see where you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick, more or less, with not being able to recoup what you have made for the city. The reason that I can come to some common ground with this is to know that the city relies so much on our electrical budget, and it drives everything. And it's like this for me. I am so concerned about the environment, but I don't want our city to shut down. And so I'm eager to learn more and to hear more from you all and to bring a better understanding to the pros and cons of this situation.
Thank you, Marla. Lisa?
I appreciate all the phone calls I've received on this. I'm like Marla. I've seen the green environment. I've worked with people that have done a lot of positive things in the green environment, and I think one of my concerns is when you purchase one of these systems, the ROI is 20 to 30 years, and we're only giving them a grandfather of 12 years. I think that should be more, because the people that have already purchased these systems have already made this large investment, are part of our community, and I think the grandfather should reflect that we appreciate the efforts that they put in to making our community green. And I agree with Brad, we need to have a plan so this stuff doesn't happen in the future. But I'm for, I understand why we have to do net metering, but I want to see that we raise that grandfathering to support the people that have already put these panels in.
Mr. Mayor.
Mindy?
I've written down my comments again because, as you suggested, I would just ramble on and on if I didn't. I am not as eloquent a speaker as Trish Humans is, and the rest of you that have spoken. Need my notes. This is a particularly tough issue because, a couple reasons. One, there's a lot of math involved, and that math gets a little complicated sometimes. And another thing is, we as board members really are asked to kind of be wearing two hats. We want to hear what you all have to say, and we want to do what we can to work with you all, but we also have a responsibility to the city and what brings in needed revenue to the city. I've spoken with a handful of you who have solar panel customers, and those I've spoken with have had their solar panels anywhere from 6 months to 9 or 10 years. While I understand the city's desire to protect customers who don't have renewable energy facilities from subsidizing those who do have those facilities, I do feel, like Director Rissler said, that we should extend the grandfather clause to at least 15, if not even up to 20 years, in order to give all current solar panel customers a chance to recoup their cost, even if it means coming up with a fair way to have them split that annual penalty fee. A concern of ours is that we have a $260 penalty fee a year. There's 26 customers, which answers your question. I believe there's 26 solar panel customers in town. That might be $10 a year that you would pay in the penalty if that's one of our concerns. I also understand the city is losing money in revenue from the current customers, but I feel extending the grandfather clause is reasonable and fair. As for some of the questions raised, I do think we need to consider and answer those questions. I also understand that as a city that operates our own electrical distribution system, we rely on the revenue generated as an electric provider. While the concern that the proposed net metering changes may very well de-incentivize citizens from investing in solar panels, my hope is that there may still be those whose motivation will be as much about respecting natural resources as it is about saving money on their electric bill. And so I hope that people will continue to invest in solar panels, especially now that leasing is an option and it's not quite as expensive. Probably as expensive, if not more in the long run, but upfront. As one who does want to encourage citizens to advance environmental sustainability, I am encouraged knowing that GRDA is committed to producing renewable energy. It'd be great if we could continue providing the same incentives we have been for solar customers. But I think we as board members have to consider electricity is a large source of revenue, and we have to consider those citizens who don't have the renewable energy facilities. Grandfathering existing solar panel customers and making our new policy very clear to citizens considering solar panels seems to be fair. Because I have heard several times, we were under the impression that this is what would happen, but this is not what happened. So I just think in the future, anybody considering those solar panel customers, if we, the city, know about it, and I think we probably would, we just need to have some sort of clear policy that says this is what you can expect. Is it worth your time and money to do this? So with all that said, again, I just want us to get answers to some of these really good questions that are raised as we continue to consider this proposal over the next couple of readings. And I do encourage you all to continue speaking with us and come back to these meetings to hear the answers that we get.
Mayor.
Carol.
I too would like to have some answers to some of these questions that these citizens have asked, especially about the math. There is a lot of information in here, a lot of information to absorb. At first glance, I realize that our city operates on the revenue from our electric company. That's how we have managed to have the amenities that we have, the quality of life that we have. It's the majority of our electric budget. But I would like to have these people get the answers that they're looking for. I don't know what these vendors have told them on their return on investment. 40 years seems like a long time to me when you purchase something. And I know that renewable energy is very, very important. Sustainable energy is important. So if we could just have more answers to these questions when we come back next time, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Carol.
Mayor.
Reed.
Thank you to everyone who has spoken this evening. I also look forward to hearing some answers on how the math works so that we can be an understanding about that and not be confused. Concerning the ordinance, I think at the least I'd like to go 15 years for the grandfather clause. But more than that, I'm looking forward just to having some more interaction, hearing thoughts and opinions, and also hearing some real numbers on what we're looking at here so we can make a clear and decisive move on this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I forgot I had a question for Mr. Stokes. Now, these the grandfathered citizens, whether it's 12 years, 15 years, whatever we go with, nothing will change for them during that time. No extra meters, no changes in how we reimburse, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
So underneath this, as you know, just the fiscal impact, if we just start looking at this, annually, presently, we lose $697.77 in net revenue. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In fiscal impact. So presently the number's small, but you know, we're at 61 point some odd percent of filling out the census according to this little sheet of paper. So we're still around 15. We all hope it gets bigger. But just think about that number and think about 1,000 customers. I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at well over, 697,000. That's 1,000 customers. Just, when we start running these numbers, I just want to remind my fellow board members is that we got to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people and try to be as fair as possible. But, number two conversation tonight, and, I'm concerned about numbers in a very large way, and I know the city is also. But I know out of this one, we aren't going to make everybody happy. It's just a tough one. You guys already bought into it. Shine Solar in Rogers, as I go by there, that parking lot is full, and it's not customers, it's installers. It is crammed full. City of Fayetteville, Woolsey Rhett Prairie put in 2 large, massive systems. I know because I burned the prairie. Now, you think about the planning going into that one next to that kind of money. Each one of those banks in there have a fire system in there, and they have invested a ton of money because they want what we already have. They need that revenue to create what they have going on. They have an excellent street department that does a fantastic job with their streets. This last conversation brought up a lot of questions about infrastructure, and I heard the yelling and the gnashing of teeth. Well, we've got master plans out the yin-yang with 10-year plannings. It takes $10 million, and we want to escalate those. We've got a primary water line that we're replacing, so it becomes a secondary. There's a project going on in Oklahoma to secure our water for many, many years to come. Name a project that we don't need funding on. So at the end of the day, as we get into the second and third reading, please keep in mind we have to create revenue. And this is one of our major revenue generators. Please keep that in mind. Thank you.
And I might add, do the math on our rates, and you're going to be surprised how competitive we are in the Northwest Arkansas region. So we're doing a tremendous job, and as the board has said, many of, what was the word you used, Brad, amenities that we all enjoy.
Yeah, I love that word.
I know you. Yeah, I'd heard it before, but you did a
But
good
I love
job
analogies better.
Yeah.
Thank you for
but
the analogy.
there's a lot of things we enjoy about the life we have here in Siloam Springs. I'm born and raised. I don't know a whole lot of difference. I've lived out there, but only a couple years. But until I was on this board, I didn't realize how dependent so many of the departments in Siloam Springs depend on the revenue that comes from our electric department. We can give it back away. We can give a lot of that back, but your water bill is going to go up. Your trash collection is going to go up. Every other service that Siloam Springs has is going to go up. Your parks are not going to get mowed as often as they have been. It just is a fact of life, folks. You'd have to pay for some of these things, and if you can find a revenue stream, and the fact that we keep it competitive with our neighboring cities, I'm proud of us. We could jack the price up to some of what they have, and we could have even more stuff. But that's not the decision that this board and our staff has not recommended that at all. We try to be cognizant of the needs of our citizens. Right now, we're not even getting paid by a lot of them. We may never get paid by some of them, and that could be a big hit. No, ma'am, we got 2 more readings on this probably, so you're welcome to come back anytime. Okay, just make a mental note or write down what you would like to say, and you'll do that because we've been here for quite some time, and we still have another ordinance and a resolution we need to get through. Thank you anyway. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to suspend on ordinance number 20-10.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Carol.
I move that we place ordinance number 2010 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is further discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to suspend. Roll call. Suspend.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler, Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-10, an ordinance amending Chapter 98 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code for the purposes of updating the electrical regulations with respect to net metering and distributed generation. Distributed generation, excuse me.
Philip, you thought I'd forgotten to call on you, didn't you? You didn't get called on that first one, so. All right. We'll now go to ordinance number 20-11, first reading, property maintenance code amendments. Don Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board, Don Clark, Community Development Director. So one of the Board of Directors 2019 goals, including having staff to review the property maintenance code and look for changes that needed to be reviewed. This past November 2019, staff presented a report to the board on how the property maintenance code was proceeding since its adoption in 2016. Staff brought forth 4 potential changes to the board in that report and received feedback to the potential changes. The proposed revisions are a result of that discussion. Staff recommended revisions are as follows. In section 6631, staff recommends adding a section that would deal with trees. Dead or severely damaged trees or trees down due to severe weather would need to be removed within 90 days of the event or 90 days of receipt of notice from the city. Currently, this is a difficult area to sometimes get compliance as there is no specific verbiage to this in the current code. The other one would be 6634. This is the rubbish and garbage section. Staff recommends adding sections that would address furniture, electronics, items meant to be for indoor use, tires, and pallets to be prohibited from being stored outside or within public view. 6684C. Staff recommends changing the qualifications for inoperable vehicles to having to meet one of the definitions instead of currently they have to meet 2. So if it's an operable vehicle, it has to meet 2 of the definitions. Staff recommendation is for it just to meet one of those, whether it be an operable vehicle and or trailer. Also in 6684 under C4A, staff recommends adding the verbiage of not having potable water or electricity that we would consider to be to what we would consider to be an unfit structure for human occupancy. This will address some issues with people living in structures without water or electricity for an extended period of time. Again, the goal of code enforcement is to gain voluntary compliance through education. That is done by advising citizens of the nature of a violation when the violation has either been brought to our attention or we find it. Advising the citizen on how to correct the violation, also giving a time frame to correct the violation. Then lastly, if needed, the enforcement avenue will be taken if it's not corrected. So staff believes these revisions will assist in that goal, and we're recommending approval, and we're standing ready for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any comments from the audience? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff.
Mayor?
Brad?
Hey, first of all, I just, Philip and staff, thank you. I read it. I think it's a great start. I think this is an ongoing, I don't want to call it a battle because COVID-19 is a battle. It's ongoing work. And so, I appreciate it. And thanks for the work. Great updates.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh,
Here.
I just want to thank staff as well, you, Don, and all of your staff for adding these items to this. I think it makes it more, there's more teeth in it. And like Brad said, I think as we go along, we'll find more and more things. I think this is an ordinance that just is going to continually to evolve. But I do appreciate it. Thank you.
My quick question. This is for commercial property as well, or is it just residential?
It'll be for both.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, we recently had an issue with the tires, and you all went and addressed it. And as far as I can tell, it's good. So thank you.
So, just to clarify, so the outside storage of tires as a residential property, and then commercial property, it would need to be stored in compliance with the fire code.
Mr. Mayor.
Marla.
Appreciate all the work and the changes that you made. I, like Director Hunt, wanted to know if it applied to business or residential, and you answered that. I also wanted to know, I know it's hard for some families to remove trees, appliances. Maybe in the near future we might look at having cleanup a little more often, where we can have some of those larger items picked up that may not be able to be, taken care of by the property owner. I just think that we need to assist any way that we can. And the trees bother me, but, you're looking at residents that it may stress them more than it's stressing you than me, because they don't know what to do with it. And we need to be as helpful as we can.
That's a great statement. We're aware of a number of different volunteer organizations who are willing to assist where needed. Again, this would give us an opportunity, once we start a dialogue with someone and they're not gaining compliance, we're not getting compliance, to give us a little bit more, another tool in the pouch, if you will, or more teeth to it if we needed to use it.
All right, seeing no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move that we place ordinance number 20-11 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
Thank you. I was looking on the wrong line and I already had it all filled out, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. No, so yes, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip. Administrator's report, staff reports.
Oh, we have a resolution.
Mr. Burkholder.
That's why I had that. That's why I was just said what I did. I just filled it out on the resolution line. If y'all
Ben Roadshow.
do what?
I read the ordinance.
I even have your name written down here. Then you didn't do it. Okay, Philip, go ahead.
Ordinance
Yeah.
number 20-11, an ordinance amending sections 31, 34, and 84 of Chapter 66 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code to adopt property maintenance code updates. Thank you.
I didn't mean to take that opportunity away from you, Philip. I apologize. I've asked Renee to separate this. I may have to go to a single item per page in the future to keep from jumping back up into my notes. All right, then. Resolution 24-20, setting hearing date for right-of-way vacation for 2100 Highway 412 East. Ben Rhodes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. What you're looking at is a resolution to set the board hearing date to review right-of-way closure. This is occurring in the Killebrews edition at 2100 Highway 412 East. The petitioners seek to close a north-south unnamed street that has never been constructed or used by the public. Staff is suggesting June 16, 2020 for the hearing, and we stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience? One, two, the four of you here. Being no comments, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve, to approve.
Are you wanting a motion, or you're going to?
I say I'll entertain a motion.
Okay,
Yes, thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve resolution number 24-20.
Second.
All right. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve on resolution 24-20. Roll call?
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. The resolution is approved. Staff reports, administrators report. Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you have before you the April sales tax receipts, which are February sales. For the city, we're up on the month compared to last year, 16.4%. For year to date, up 13%. I would caution you to recognize that the impacts of COVID, I don't believe, are in these numbers. I believe you'll see next time we do this, that'll be March sales, and then the second time that'll be April sales. So June and July, our receipts in June and July is when we're really going to be looking at what the impact is for sales tax. On the county side, for the month, they're up 19.6% on what we receive, and for year to date, up 13% also. Everyone is aware of the board elections. Anyone looking to run for the board needs to pick up a packet, obtain their signatures, and turn in that packet by noon on May the 28th. The at-large positions 5, 6, and 7 in the position of mayor are up for election. I put in the report in front of you the census response rate. Director Burns already referenced it. I just wanted to point out on the national scale, as of I believe it was the 17th, the national response rate is 59.6%. Arkansas is at 54.4%. Benton County is at 63.2%. Siloam Springs is at 61.1%. And you can see in that list, I listed additional cities. Bella Vista is actually leading the state at 77.7% response rate. So I would encourage any resident who hasn't responded to the census to please do so. As we all know, it's very important as it relates to turnback monies from the state and other federal monies that come into the state, and turnback monies from the state to the city. It's very important, but we are ahead of the state response rate and ahead of the national response rate. But I challenge our residents to we're in a race. We're in a race with Springdale, in my opinion, and Tontitown. Tontitown's at almost 64%. I believe we can do better than that in our response rates. We opened up City Hall last week. We opened up the library this past Monday based on the COVID-19. We are still recommending that everybody wear masks. We have put up shields in all of those areas where staff typically interacts with the public, but we are requesting the public to continue to wear masks when they enter city facilities, not to enter if they've had a fever, if they've been exposed in any way to COVID-19 or have a fever or feeling sick. I thought it was interesting looking at the numbers of percentage of people wearing masks that are entering city facilities, and you can see there on average, I think, you're probably talking about 20-25% of the residents who are doing business with the city, either at sanitation, City Hall, community development, animal control, or the courts. Parks was the highest percentage, but it was also the least number of residents entering. I asked for the numbers from the library yesterday. You can see in one day, yesterday, we had 77 customers at the library, and 56 of those customers were wearing masks. So we had a much higher percentage of wearing masks at the library. We did start this week with a different sign at these facilities to try to emphasize better the request to wear masks. So we'll see if it happens this week compared to last week. And the reference, I want to be clear, Director Ressler, you mentioned at the workshop about restaurant numbers being up. What we heard was that the fast food restaurants were up, that they were doing, not restaurants all across the board. I'm looking at the numbers. If you look at just as the sales tax receipts from February last year, they're up. They're all restaurants. But as far as what I think is going to be strictly sales tax numbers in COVID-related sales tax, again, in the next 2 months of receipts, we may see fast food restaurants up, but I don't know about the rest of them from that standpoint. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. All right. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend. This is a time that we get to remember those. It's morphed into just about family members somewhat, but let's keep in mind that this was particularly and initially a time set aside for us to remember those who gave their lives for the freedoms that we have to gather together and do what we're doing tonight. And so we want to keep there. And the American Legion is having a memorial program at City Hall. And it's Monday, the 25th, at the Community Building at 10 a.m. Keynote speaker is Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. Tim has been to Siloam Springs many times, and we welcome him back, and I look forward to visiting with him when he comes in. And yes, be aware, you want to be the first ones to get there, just in case, because that's a public assembly, and the social spacing and everything else will be done as requested, and there's a limit of 50 unless something changes between now and Monday. 50 is the most that would be allowed to come into that building, and that includes people attending and those who are participating in the program. So not that many folks, unfortunately, but if you can make it, that'd be great. All right. At least if you discount the county and just go with the cities, we're number 5 as far as percent of census reports, Philip, as far as percentage-wise, which just fits about where we sit with the city and with the county in size and everything like that, about number 5. Maybe not so since Bella Vista has grown so much, but then those retired folks over there, they got time to get out and get those things filled out. I know it's real fast. Director Smiley said so. She did it. My wife got on and did ours, and then she said it was just like that. It was done. So I'd like to see us up about 80% by next board meeting. So that's a challenge. All right. Now I'm going to quit right there, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. Once again, I want to thank city staff and all of our employees for the extra effort that they've made all through this COVID experience to keep everybody safe. I know it's been hard on everybody, but they've done an excellent job, and we really appreciate that. The other appreciation I have is for the numbers of people who reached out to each director on the multiple things we had on our agenda tonight. They've got to understand that if they don't reach out and tell us how they feel, we have to go based on what our best information and knowledge is, and I'll not go any farther than that with it, but sometimes it may not be to their liking, but if we don't hear from them, we don't know.
Right.
So I sincerely appreciate that. A couple of directors have mentioned that it was all done very civilly. I've received a lot of emails and a lot of telephone calls, and I enjoyed each and every one of them to get to have a discourse with the people, and I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. Mindy?
I, too, very proud of the citizens for getting involved with the issues that we consider tonight. As Director Carroll said, with maybe a couple of exceptions, most all of the communication we received was very respectful, kind, articulate, and just a good provision for some dialogue. And we need that. We want that. We can't express that enough. In honor of Memorial Day, I do want to thank those men and women who have sacrificed their lives for us and for our freedom. As you enjoy the 3-day weekend, stay safe.
Brad?
Well, Memorial Day actually came out of the Civil War, and it progressed in time. So we have a large history of that in this city. So I'm sure you'll take the time appropriately. And freedom is a great thing. It was expressed tonight. I thank the board for processing that. I thank the citizens for reaching out. One thing I kind of live in life and is dead fish don't swim upstream. So for those that want to see the town thrive, keep working on ideas to come up with economic development. I look forward to that. And the most thing I'm excited by the input this weekend or over the past week is that apparently downtown's going to be flooded with people buying things and visiting downtown. And I look forward to seeing that over the weekend and actually over the summer. Some great weather coming up. So please, you've cast your opinion. Now get downtown and spend your dollars. Thank you.
Marla?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This last couple of weeks with all the new items on the agenda that we've been having to consider, the input from the city has been wonderful. The staff and also from the community members. I really respect those of you that, stand up for your values. And I also respect those of you that are trying to earn a living and you're expressing what's important to you too. What we're facing right now in the world is uncharted waters. There's no right or wrong way to take care of this. We're learning every day something new. We can just do the best that we can at any given time. And if we're considerate of others and just be thankful for what we have, we will get along a lot better. Just want to say, hey, I went to the safari today. I had a good time with my grandson. And so this beautiful weather, can't wait to get out there some more. Don't forget the Manna Center. We've got plenty of food. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Lisa?
I forget that I have Philip's mic over here that I have to turn on. I, again, want to say thank you to the citizens that reached out to us. You elect us to represent you. And the best way we can represent you is by hearing what you have to say. And we really appreciate your feedback on any subject that we have. One of the suggestions my husband keeps telling me to help our local businesses, especially our restaurants, is remember to stagger your visits. A lot of times at noon we want to go eat lunch, or at 5 o'clock we want to go eat. How about think about going at 11 or 1 or go at 4 or 6, stagger, and that will keep them busy because they're limited on the number of customers that they can have in there. My family will continue to show our support by shopping local and buying gift cards, and we encourage others in the community to do that as well. And we hope everybody has a safe Memorial Weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Bob, does Mrs. Claus have a birthday coming up today, was it?
No, I never miss them either, so.
if it is, you're in big trouble, is that where you?
No.
No.
Yeah, I would hope he would. My wife
They're tattooed right here, see?
My wife had told me to ask about somebody, and I thought it was Mrs. Claus, but
And it
apparently it
scared
was
me
not.
to death for a second.
Sorry.
I thought this was September, but it's not, no.
September, okay. Thank you, Bob. Reed?
I just want to say thank you to the community of Siloam Springs. I believe we have a positive future ahead of us. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I believe that we will persevere and we will look strong. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. And Carol, you got the big duty tonight,
I got
don't
the end,
you?
but thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I like your positive word. I think we all need to be positive during this time. We see too much negativity wherever. I want to thank staff for presenting the ordinance for downtown. And I want to remind citizens once again, I don't want to belabor this, but when something is presented to a board member, I think they have the obligation to bring it forward to us, and we have the obligation to discuss it and to vote on it. Whether we like it or we think it's a waste of time, someday you're going to have a project and you don't want us to think it's a waste of time. So I am so glad we got to vote on that, and we had the citizens that came out and gave us their opinions. And I think we voted on the way the majority of the citizens wanted us to. I want to thank the electric department. We had the electricity go out in my neighborhood on Friday, and within minutes, the electric department was out there. We had trees that had fallen on some lines, not lives. Everybody's safe. We're all here. But they took care of it in a very timely manner, and I really appreciate it because the weather was raining and wind and everything else. So we have a great electric department. Our whole city staff is wonderful. I also want to thank those that gave their lives for my freedom. That's one of the most precious things I have, and I respect it and I honor it. And if there's no further business, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Woo pig. Suey. Win something sometime.